the next day, and the slope air is dried, and so now I'm going to, and it's always nice to give it a test by putting your finger in it. If it was colder out here, I might have gone 2 days, but it hasn't gotten that cold in the shop yet. If it starts coming up gummy on the bottom of the sandpaper, then wait a day, because it still needs it hasn't quite cured, because it should sand down white powdery. So I'm going to get on that, but then I just wanted to let you know we had the death grip loop. We did a video on it, and I'm going to have it. I just discovered another thing that I could do with the this hitch, and oops, I keep pulling the wrong cord, and it should be this one. Yeah, instead of having the knot in line with the loop, this one has the loop. it moves. There we go. This one has the knot in line, so when you pull on it, it gets tighter. So if you have, I'm thinking this would be good for a first aid to hold a splint in place. Also, if you're building a mast, you can make a bunch of these and just put them up and down instead of having to tape it, and then just tighten it down, and this thing's not going to give. So we'll come back to that later. So I'm going to go ahead and sand now, and we'll come back when I get done. I mean, and we'll make sure, do whatever to keep the sander mostly on the plywood and not rounding it. We'll round it over later, but I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that when that time comes. Well, I was wrong. I'm going to give it another day. When I was sanding down and through here, I was noticing I was getting little nits, little gummy little things, and it's not sanding smooth. So I'm going to give it one more day. If you're in a hurry, that's where the quick fair comes in, because it would have been, hard as rock now. But the slow fair gives you so much more time to work with it that I'll rather have that aspect of it than having to come back the next day to progress. So I can wait a day. It's sunny out. I'm going to go out riding my motorcycle in the sunshine. We'll be back tomorrow. Well, I've been back at it again. I wanted to try my my rasp on the edges, and it seems to work better than the sandpaper, and it's a lot on the electric sander anyway. I'll come back later and do it with the sander, but I find I just keep pressure on this side that I can maintain an edge along here. We'll come back and round this down, but just a hair, because you can't get the fiberglass to go over the sharp edge when we put the glass on, but I want to get it even. And then I find there's a couple spots in here I'll probably have to come back when I'm fairing the edges of the 3-inch glass tape we're going to put in. I'm going to put some, I've got some little spots in here that need some touch up. I didn't get enough material on it, so I'll go ahead and clean them up so that the new stuff will stick to it. But just take your tool, or maybe it could be just some sandpaper on a stiff board, and sand off the excess along the side here, and we'll come back when I touch up the edges with the round part. If you're going to be skin coating and just have a bare wood surface, you wouldn't want to use this thing, because I'm leaving grooves behind, but this hull will be covered up with fiberglass cloth and wet it out, so I'm not going to worry about it. Well, I've been sanding all the edges after I rasped them down, even with the surface here. And then for the rounding on the severe corners, I'll take my little piece of, you see, a half round pipe, and then I'll put the sandpaper underneath of it like I showed you on the bow, and you just go along and sand to get this radius. As you get into the ends, where it starts flattening out in here, then you have to go to just regular hand sanding and you feel it. Now the other thing I've done too is now that I have smooth surfaces around here, now I need to figure out where the imperfections are. On the center line here, on the keel, I've got a couple right where the finger joints was a big gap. I thought I filled it, but it shrank a little bit. And as you can see, the dusty powder, this waiting 2 days on the slow fair gave me a full cure, and it sanded down rather well. So now I'm taking a green pencil and going along and finding spots that weren't quite, ready for prime time, and I'll come back and fill those in. I may wait, depending on how many I've got on the keel line here, I may wait until I do the fairing the edges, but I think since I have such a big one here and on the ends where the tape will cover them, I'm going to go ahead and mix up just a little bit of the slow fair and fill in these little touch-up things. And I'll come back when I'm doing that, because there's something I learned yesterday that I'm going to pass on to you. One of the things I found yesterday, which I hadn't been doing, was normally I would be pulling my tool along, pulling at an angle like this. I found that I was at, if the surface is smooth, or mostly smooth, if you go this direction, you get almost all the material. So you leave very little of the sand, but you got to be careful that you don't mess up the edge. Basically what I'm trying to do here is to maintain this radius. Sometimes you can get away with it by going like this. If you got a little gap, the tool is wider than the gap, so you can just roll it in and fill that hole. Sometimes it's like this one's being a little, I think I'm going to go ahead and leave a little more than normal. Sand it down in a couple days from now. So I think I'm done with that. I just finished doing all the touch-up sanding. I'm going around and finding any little spots that may need some touch-up. But remember, this is not furniture. This is a boat you're going to go out and get scratched and throw up on the rocks, and well, not throw up on the rocks, but you're going to. It's a boat. You're going to use it. Not furniture. But when I did, one of the things I've been wanting, stressing, is to maintain these edges, because what you're going to do, or why you're trying to accomplish this, is when you're looking down the line, you want it to be smooth. You want it to not be undulating in and out, and that's one of those things you want to be really careful on when you're wiring it together, both sides. Is to look. Maybe even after you get done wiring it and putting the bolts in, to flip it over just to look at the seams so that they look like they have even gaps, on the outside, that one side isn't puckered over on the other one, that they're both along. Now I did find here on where the, I guess you would call it probably a hard spot where the finger joints overlap. It's a little less flexible in there, mainly because it also has a layer of glass on the inside. But I found that when I put down here, it's fine. It has, it's consistent. But once I get up into about in here, a little hollow starts developing, which I could see that it didn't have the full thickness that everything ahead and behind did. So I took another colored pencil, a brown one, and marked in some concentric arcs as to where this fix needs to be. And I'll fix this and fair it in when we're doing the edge on the 3-inch tape, which we're going to be doing next. So I'm going to get out my Raptor square and use the 1.5-inch side to kind of loft in some tick marks along the center line as a guide to put in that 3-inch tape. And then there's something I want to do on the ends too, for marking out to where the end is, because it's not going to go all the way up to the bow, because that just makes it a little just more work, and it really isn't necessary. So let me do that and we'll come back on the bow.